Absolutely. And thank you for jumping on today. We were planning to get you in one of our physical local events for like a year. We were like just too embarrassed to ask, and it was like, okay, we don't want to take Phil's time, but Zoom again made this a lot easier.
But I think the biggest thing that we have as realtors is sometimes we are wondering if we can bring value. So the fear is, can I bring value to the meeting? Am I the right person? It's kind of almost like the imposter syndrome. I'm not worthy. Maybe I'm not worthy of speaking. But I can tell you from experience, these make you a better realtor. I think everyone should do them. People say, well, I'm not good at public speaking. I'm good one-on-one. But, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So, here I am hoping I'm going to be bringing value. And sure, going into the day, you're a little bit uncomfortable, but hey, you got to take it on.
Thank you. That's very inspiring for the people on the call or on Facebook. If you're looking to become a better real estate agent, do one of these calls. You're going to become a better speaker, better, at enrollment. And all we're doing is selling is enrollment anyways, right? So again, thank you for being such a great example. All right, it is 11 o'clock. Thank you everyone for jumping on the call, the Facebook community and our EXP group and all of our guests. Today, we are super excited. Well, I'm super excited with our guest, Mr. Phil Moore. Been an absolute inspiration to my real estate career. Even when I was young, like in the early 90s, I would get, our family would get the notepads and it would be Phil Moore and Doris G. I'm like, these guys are absolute legends, and even today still in the game, still crushing the game. Without further ado, welcome Mr. Phil Moore. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. So let me just start by acknowledging everyone on the call, and I'll start with a little story about two guys that were walking along the beach, and it was 345 BC, so 345 before Christ. There was an older gentleman, and he was mentoring a younger gentleman. The older gentleman, his name was Socrates. The younger gentleman was Plato. And Socrates was teaching Plato and saying to Plato, there are three stages of life. Everything has three stages. Energy has three stages. There is growth, there is stability, and there's decay. And Plato, he looked at a log that had come up on the beach, and he challenged Socrates, and Plato said no. He says, I think there's only two stages of life. There's growth and there's decay. Either that tree is growing, and when that tree is growing, we know it's growing. Once you cut that tree down, it becomes in a form of decay. And so we hear, I just want a stable marriage. John, there's no such thing as a stable marriage. Marriage is work. You're always working on marriage, and the wives will agree. They're working on us. So I've got to acknowledge you for taking the time to learn and grow. Like, if you're not learning and growing, you're decaying. And so you have a choice in life. We looked at 3 secrets to staying on top of the game, is what you presented to me. The very first one, I'll take the most amount of time because I think I've got the most to offer on it. And I was thinking that I would talk about how to connect. And really, when I talk about connecting, I'm talking about how to deal with personalities. Topic number 2, I thought I worked on something with the Canadian Real Estate Association. They asked me to define professionalism. So I'm going to give you my definition of professionalism. And number 3, the third secret is how to have a balanced life. And I'll give you 5 points on having a balanced life. And hopefully after 30 minutes, we can get something out of this. Where I come from is I grew up in 19th and Main, and I basically came from a poor family. There were 6 children in a 3-bedroom house. I slept in the basement. I hate camping because the first 15 years of my life, I didn't have a bed. I had a foam mattress and a sleeping bag. And I came from an area of wanting to never deal with poverty. So I was driven to succeed because of my childhood. And we always have to look at what drives us, what are the values that we create. And so when I finished high school, I wanted a job right away, and I wanted to make money. And I didn't want to go to school. I needed it right away. The Vancouver Police was making $36,000 a year. It's the highest paid police department in Canada. I was 18. I'm going to apply to become a police officer, and I'm going to make $36,000 a year. Pretty good profession. And I studied how to do the interview. You know, several years later, on a ranch in California, when I was working on myself, I bought this plaque. And actually, if you see the plaque, it's actually bronze bullshit. And I actually bought my bullshit back. I wasn't ready to be a police officer at 19. They bought my bullshit, what we call relatively high IQ. And I got through policing with a high IQ, but I didn't have any EQ. And EQ, when we talk about EQ, we talk about emotional intelligence. Then at 26, I decide that this is not for me, and I switch over to real estate. I got no sales experience at all. In fact, I don't know what EQ is. I'm not used to door knocking. I'm used to kicking in doors, not knocking on doors. I had some roles where I walked in and told Mr. and Mrs. Jones, your 17-year-old son jumped through the window at the Hyatt Regency Hotel, and he's no longer with us. And that didn't bother me. That was my role. And then all of a sudden, I get into real estate and realize I'm not going to be a very effective real estate agent unless I start to understand behaviors. And I learned I kind of learned the hard way. I was banging on doors of expiries, and there's one predominant realtor. His name was Bob Rennie, and he had all the listings in Burnaby, and he always let everything expire. And so myself and Doris would go bang on the doors, and we'd get in. We'd say, in case we have a buyer, can we preview this list? Can we preview your home? We'd go through the home, we'd tour it, we'd have our paperwork with us, it was in our pocket, and we'd say to ourselves mentally, we're not leaving until we get this listing. And then we'd have a nice conversation and a nice coffee, and every day was the same answer from different people. We would never list with anyone else because Bob's our friend.
Wow.
And I thought, how can this guy have so many friends? and actually, we couldn't beat him. He'd actually let people know we were coming. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, your listing's going to expire. Just want to let you know, probably Phil and Doris will show up at your door tomorrow morning. I just want to let you know, but I'm still interested in relisting your property. We could look at price. And we'd knock on the door, and they'd go, oh, come on in. Bob told us you'd be here. Finally, I couldn't beat him, so I had lunch with him. And I tried to understand how he could have so many friends. And I started to realize that Bob didn't communicate. He connected. He had a way to connect with his clients, no matter where they were, what type of house they had, whether they were CEO. So I started to study personalities, and I started to study behavior of human traits. A company called PSI Seminars do this very well in 2 hours. And they've got a system where, if you can think of a page being in 4 quadrants, the top quadrant is someone that's formal and dominant. Beside it is formal and flow through. Below it is informal and dominant. And below that, beside it, is informal and flow with. And you'll decide based upon whether you're dominant or informal, or whether you're flow through, what quadrant you fit in. Then you start to analyze the quadrants. And so the very, very top is where I was. We call this a controller. There are some key words that controllers like. That's performance, results, bottom line, target, professionalism, competent, impact, relentless, time is money. Generally speaking, you're going to walk into a home, and if they're a CEO or they're a president of a company, they are what we call predominantly a controller. And there are certain ways to deal with a controller. Dominance respects dominance. You have to stand your ground, but you have to really show confidence. You have to be precise, efficient, time disciplined, and well organized. that CMA is going to give you 1 hour.
Mm.
Time is money. He's not ready for a two-step. If you don't have the price, then he's going to think you're incompetent. I struggle because my predominant trade is that of a controller. Most policemen are. And so we can be like this unless I'm willing to give up control, unless I'm willing to master what his likes and dislikes are. On the other quadrant, you've got what we generally called an analyst. They're big on data. They analyze integrity, objectivity, conservative. Everything to them is black and white. The controller up here has number one need, and his need is to be right.
Mm.
Here with the analyst, he has a need to be right, but his need is to be wrong, not to be wrong. So he analyzes and analyzes and analyzes. Generally speaking, an accountant or an engineer. And when I walk into the home, and I have 4 CMAs, by the way, 4 different presentations depending on my personality. When I walk into the home of an analyst, I'm figuring out now that I don't have enough data.
Mm.
They like someone that's organized, systematic, exact, prepared, have data for them, okay? A lot of times after 1 hour, it won't be enough. And I say to them, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you know what? It sounds like you really need some more information. Maybe I should go outside of Capitol Hill, and maybe we should compare Vancouver Heights and Willingdon Heights, and maybe we should get some sales in Montecito and Sterling and Duthie area. And you know what? I need to bring all the assessed values, and we need to look at how they're selling above or assessed value, the percentage. I need to bring graphs and flow charts. And right away, I'm appealing to them because I'm offering to come back and create more data. Remember, 1 hour with these guys is probably not enough. Their number one need is not to be wrong.
Mm.
The bottom column, generally you can tell by their house because usually they're an entertainment house or they have an entertainment personality. The keywords that they like is new, creative, innovative, revolutionary, dynamic, dramatic. You got to give these guys, we call them promoters. You got to give them center stage. Their number one need is to be noticed. And usually their home is built for entertainment. And you're going to start to recognize some of those signs. And as you're touring the house, you're going, wow, this home would be incredible for a wedding. Oh, my sister, we had my sister's wedding here. We had over 100 people. I had this party, I had that party. You know, one thing I'm not a big fan of is wine and cheese parties for realtors. I think they're a waste of time. But for a promoter, they're really important.
Mm.
Tell you what, Mrs. Jones, you know, I'm thinking that we could have a little bit, I could throw a party for realtors. We could do a wine and cheese. I could have some sushi. I'm going to invite all of these realtors over on Thursday between 7 and 9. You know what, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you shouldn't be home. You don't have to be home. But I'm going to do an open house, and I'm going to throw a bit of a party for my fellow colleagues. And that's what they desire. They're entertaining. They're fast moving. A lot of times they'll talk about ideas and dreams. Then on the other bottom corner, below the analyst, is actually your biggest source of business. They also are the best listeners. They also make the best realtors, in my opinion.
Mm.
Speaking, we call them supporters. They are like teachers or a counselor. Their number one need in life is to help you. John, I really appreciate all this work that you've done on your CMA, but I don't need it. Here it is.
Mm.
Whatever price you think. John, I trust you.
Wow.
Whatever price you think. And so, no, let me go through the actives. Let me go through the solds. They don't need that information.
Wow.
They like teamwork. They're very loyal. They're prudent. They're exciting. They are relationship orientated. It's not the task, it's the relationship. So with that supporter is how can I connect at a different level? And here's an example. I was called into a CMA, and John mentioned that I do notepads. So 8,000 notepads go out in Burnaby every 2 months. So people get a notepad. There's 30 pages. You know, when you do that type of marketing, you expect to be called in as the second or the third opinion. And a lot of times they already have a realtor in mind. They could have a relative or a friend, but they're calling you because you've got a free notepad and you're willing to do free evaluations. So let's call Phil and Doris in and get their opinion. Mm-hmm. You can tell when you get the call, because in this particular call that I had on a Monday night, and it was the highest scoring NFL football game on Monday in the history of Monday Night Football, and I wanted to watch it. The fella asked 3 times, and 3 times he reinforced that, is this evaluation free? John, you know, I just want to make sure that there's no obligation. John, again, this is a free evaluation. So now you're going in there, and I got Mr. Jones answering the door, and I go, oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Jones. Let's tour the house. Oh, by the way, is Mrs. Jones here? No, she's working late. Great. It's Monday night, the football game on. I've got Mr. Jones, Mr. Price. So I go through the evaluation thinking about when halftime might be and where I could go to watch the rest of the game. and then I think to myself, okay, Bill, if you really work on what you talk about, let's see what you can do to connect with this guy. We're 45 minutes into a CMA. You know, Mr. Jones, by the way, can I ask you what you do for a living? He's a land surveyor. Oh boy, I don't have much in common with a land surveyor. In fact, I don't have anything in common with a land surveyor. Well, Mr. Jones, you know, your wife isn't here. And it's a Monday night and it's late. What does she do? But you don't mind me asking. She's a high school principal. Oh, wow. I understand what she goes through. You know, I created this camp. It's called Camp Choice BC. And we rent out Mel's Ajax Ranch. And we have 50 youth from all over the lower mainland that have drug, alcohol, self-harm issues and gang issues. And we put them through a 5-day leadership camp. In fact, I help facilitate that camp. And I understand what your wife has, because it's really challenging. I mean, these kids are coming to a camp at Zajac Ranch. They think it's going to be all fun. And then I start to give them classroom stuff. In fact, I give them an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half at night. So I spend 15 minutes talking to this land surveyor about what I'm passionate about, which is serving youth, besides South State. I guess he comes home and he tells his wife the interesting story. She's a high school principal. He calls me the next morning and says, you know, we really had a friend in mind that we were going to list with. But he's a West Side agent. You're Burnaby. My wife really is interested in what you do with youth. And she'd like to meet you. My opportunity to get in the door, to reconnect with the wife, and to get a listing that I wasn't going to get. They had no intention of hiring me. And so that's what Bob Rennie did so well. Bob Rennie just had a way of finding out what they were passionate about in life. And then he had an opportunity to connect with them in something that they were passionate about. And so when I looked at my predominant behavioral trait, which was that of a controller, I worked on, and it took many years, I worked on becoming a little bit of an analyst, a little bit of a supporter, a little bit of a promoter, and I tried to get right in the middle of those 4 quadrants. When I worked at the real estate board and sat on the board, the real estate board has a lot of controllers and a lot of analysts. But I can tell you, the supporter, the staff at the real estate board, they're the ones that can really make us look good as leaders. You're willing to let them support. So everyone in this room or everyone on this call needs a supporter. That's the people that you need to surround yourself with in this business. Now, the course PSI seminars, the first couple of hours, and I spent 10 minutes on this, they go into it much more in detail. They talk about the personality strengths of each quadrant, the personality needs, how to work with the 4 different personalities, how to live with the 4 different personalities, which is really interesting. And they go into the whole matrix of it. I've taken notes on it. I've got 9 pages of notes on these 4 personalities. They're my notes. I'm always willing to share them. I do think that you almost have to experience this. And so I walk into a listing and I look at how I can connect, how I could be the most enthusiastic. I look at my unique selling proposition. So what is my unique selling proposition? And a lot of that will be geared towards their needs. But I can tell you, I've had to evolve. If you want to take out the top producer, the top producing real estate agent, or let's say we want someone in the top 10 in 2025. I can tell you they probably haven't joined the business yet.
Mm.
And my son's an example because my son's only 2 years in the business.
Wow.
He's off on his own and he's in the President's Club. He's in the top 1%.
Amazing.
I like to, and Bob Rennie's the same. He loves to surround himself with young people. You get the energy, you get the ideas, and you start to understand what their needs are. My unique selling proposition really is the personal touch. I've never had a big team of 20 or 25 or 15. I've always given personal service.
Mm.
So I've kind of tried to become an expert on personalities and finding a way to touch. When I'm talking to John, I'm trying to touch him on a different level. And some people are really good at it. Women are really good listeners.
Mm.
And a lot of times they get the business. I ran this over at my board. There are 3 ways to listen. Okay. The very first thing is I hear something and John, I agree. You're right. I'm right. I agree. And I take whatever John's saying and I put it on the I agree shelf of my brain. Then I hear John and go, no, John, you're wrong. I'm right. I disagree. And it goes to the I disagree shelf of my brain. In fact, there are some directors that are always outside the box that I start to disagree before they finish the sentence. The only way, the most effective way, and the third way of listening is to be with. So be with has got a couple stages. Be here now, be present, notice what I'm reacting, and then ask myself, why am I reacting this way? And that gives enough pause so that you can take in the client's information. You can actually hear their needs. And people that are in the supportive role, people that have that predominant behavioral trait, they have a great way of listening. And so listening to the needs of the client and understanding the personality that you're working with is key.
Absolutely. I'm going to just say something here. If you guys aren't familiar with this whole quadrant thing, there is one book called Versatile Selling with Larry Wilson. And I'll post it on the Facebook group, Facebook chat as well underneath. And also, you mentioned PSI. What does PSI stand for and what do they do, Phil?
So PSI is the longest running life success company in the world. It started in 1973. There's a 3-day course on about 30 hours. Actually, you'll get a certificate when you finish, and that will go towards 6 hours of self-directed PDP if you wanted.
Ooh.
Yeah, they have an advanced course on a ranch in California for 7 days. They have a men's leadership course on a ranch for 9 days. And then they have courses every year for 7 days. I take the course every year. I've also done Landmark, which I know, John, you've done Landmark as well. Very, very similar. PSI is just another course. It's been around since 1973. They hold us accountable, and a lot of times the accountable is to what you're doing in the community, and that leads to my next topic that I worked on with Korea called professionalism. So Korea asked us to define professionalism as a real estate agent, and I came up with 5 pillars. The first pillar is integrity and accountability. And integrity and accountability, I could sum that up in one book. This is the book that we work on our camp. This is called The 4 Agreements. And we get every youth to read this book. It's the foundation to integrity and accountability.
Love it.
Number 2 is knowledge and expertise. You need to be the expert in the area. You need to have the knowledge. You really need to, if you're being called in for an evaluation. I don't work in Surrey. I couldn't tell you what something is in Surrey. West Vancouver scares me. I don't know the area. Burnaby is what I know, so I stick to Burnaby. I've become the most knowledgeable and the most expertise in Burnaby. Number 3 is, the third pillar is courtesy and respect. And that's a lot of times we'll overpromise and underachieve. That's underpromise and overachieve. That's know your client. Come dressed appropriately. You guys are important to me. I'm sweating like crazy right now, but you're so important that I put on a tie and a jacket, and so did John. That's showing respect for who my audience is, and I try to be very courtesy. Number 5, I'll skip number 4, but number 5 is the golden rule. I think a key to professionalism is the golden rule. Treat other people how you'd like to be treated. Now, number 4, Korea looked at, and I'm raising the bar a little bit, and I talked about customer service, excellence in excellence. So in all regards, the customer service must be in a form of excellence that is very professional, but I added in coupled with service to the community. So if we're going to ever be professional, raise our professional image, we need to be of service to the community. And, PSI seminars, you're down in California with 450 leaders, and they go, okay, what's your game worth playing? And me and John Petricelli are down there, and we said, well, we created this 5-day camp, leadership camp for youth at risk. And they go, that's great, but what are you doing after the 5 days? Like, what happens after? Well, we looked at each other, goes, well, we start fundraising for next year's camp. And now they've got us working with the youth every Wednesday. So they challenge us to what we're going to do in our community. When I was the president of the board, I had been into it for about a week. And the Board of Trade was putting on a symposium on affordable housing. And I told the staff at the board, can we sponsor this event? And can I speak on affordable housing? Well, what's the role of the board? MLS, making sure that you have tools to do your job. But the community cares if we care about affordable housing. So it was amazing. I had 5 minutes. I took 8. I had 11 people write a script for me on affordable housing. And all I had to do was walk in there and deliver it. And it went off flawless. And again, it showed the community that realtors care. We're trying to find solutions to affordable housing. And so those are my 5 pillars to professionalism. That's how I define professionalism. And that was my second topic. Going on to the third topic, which is balance. Balance in your life. I've got 5 pillars for balance in my life, or 5 things. Number 1, I thought I would put down find adventure. If we look at the human mind, the human mind wants one thing. And if I was a songwriter, I'd write that the human mind wants love. Everyone needs love. But the mind doesn't need love. It needs experiences. It needs experiences. It needs to see Europe. It needs to go to Vegas. You dream about things. The human mind wants one thing, and that's experiences. One, to a balanced life was find adventure. Go out there and find adventure. Number two, I think it's really important. It goes right back to my earlier topic. Are we in a period of growth? Or are we decaying? So number two is always be learning. I'm in the gym at 5:30. I finish at 6:30. I've got another group that we hike with at 7:20. Between 6:30 and 7:20, and my driving, I've got a podcast that I listen to. Lately, I've been listening to Dr. John D. Martini, because he was our guest speaker with Youth at Risk. He did the Law of Attraction. He was in the movie The Secret.
Right.
He's read 31,000 books. Okay. I did a coaching while I was president of the real estate board. I spent a year being coached. I had a coach call every week, and it was a life coach, and it was a leadership coach. During that time, I had to read 40 books.
Wow.
And by the time I had the next meeting, I had to have read a book, almost one book a week. This guy read 31,000 books. I've read 40 in a year. Always be learning. Number three, key to balanced life is love your family and love your friends. And, you know, our family's so unique. We have Sunday dinner with all of the relatives. There's probably 12 or 13 kids, and there's Doris's brothers and sisters. There's my brothers and sisters. We take turns at different people's house. Family's important. Love your family and your friends. Number four is always do things with passion. If you're going to do them with passion. The 4 agreements: being impeccable with your word, always doing your best. Those are key things to doing things with passion. And number 5, the 5 key to having a balanced life is find a purpose in life. And so everyone has a unique set of values. They're a set of priorities in life. When you do things that are the most meaningful and fulfilling, then you're going to have a fulfilling life. And a lot of times as a mentor for youth, these kids, they have the values of their parents, they have the values of the teacher, they have the values of their mentors, then they've got all of this peer pressure, and some of them can't deal with all of these things, and they go to drugs, alcohol, and self-harm. The amount of girls in high school right now that are slashing themselves is just amazing. And it's because they haven't found a real purpose in life. And so mentoring a youth is actually helping them find their passion. And when I say find a purpose in life, you'll know it's the right purpose because you'll get passionate about it. I like things that are done in the community. I think we raise our level of professionalism. I've seen and participated in Keller Williams Red Day, and I went out and shoveled bulk mulch for 3 or 4 hours. And I did a community project with them and freshened up some gardens. There was other people picking up garbage, and they did a community day. REMAX has the Children's Miracle Network that we get behind. I'm saying that you as a group or you as a company, you need to get behind something for your community. And you'll know what, when I say find a purpose in life, you'll know, because it will be in alignment with you and you'll get passionate about it. I'm the most excited to speak. I got the subject, three secrets to stay on the top of your game. Really, I gave you the behavioral matrix because I really learned it and put it to use. Defining professionalism is just professionalism. I'm just passionate about it. And then finding balance in life. And you can see that my balance in life is a lot of things to do with passion and family and purpose. So that's 33 minutes.
Thank you very much, Phil. You summed it up for us. 30 years of success in the real estate industry. Guys, had very little to do with how do you talk to a buyer? How do you do a CMA? It's all of the back end work that made you stay on top of your game. So thank you so much for sharing. That was like 20 points altogether, not 3 secrets, like 20 secrets, guys. So if people want to stay after just a little bit, let's open it up for questions. Phil, do you have some time?
Sure.
Okay, great. Questions, guys, for Phil.
Hey, John, question. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hey, Phil, loved it. Thank you so much. I think one of the things that I really resonated with there is how you mentioned that you're not the big team guy, the 20 team guy. And I really find myself curious how you've been able to maintain selling like 100 to 150 homes with just you and Doris. Like, how do you find that balance in your life, I guess, and how are you able to just crush it on that level, being in singularity almost?
So systems, the key is developing systems in place. Now we do have one administrative assistant and she's admin. When she comes in at 9 o'clock in the morning, there's a pile like this of things for her to do. I delegate all the administrative stuff for her to do. I love people. I like showing properties. We like to show our own property. I like CMAs. I can tell you honestly, I like to do one every day. And there are some days where there's 3. And Doris is better than me at staying enthusiastic. I burn out sometimes, but I can play a song. I can pump myself up and I can get excited about going in to do this CMA. But I think the key has been always having systems in place, giving that personal touch, and technology's really helped. Like, you know, I've offers, I've done Zoom listing presentations. I think, you know, the other day I was driving out. It's a young couple. They got an offer for full price. And I'm going to drive out to North Vancouver because I know they're probably expecting more than full price. And Doris goes, you could do that by DocuSign, you know. They're young. They know how to do DocuSign. Yeah, but I don't have anything to do tonight. I'm going to go out there and bring the offer. And I got there and they were disappointed that they got full price. They wanted much more. But luckily I was there in person and I was able to talk them into the offer. I think that I just am passionate about people. And so real estate's my life. But systems are important. Having systems,
customer service. You have to be passionate about your work. Therefore, you don't burn out. Does that make sense, Courtney? Does that help? Awesome.
Yeah, totally. And that really touches for me on the burnout aspect of it and having those systems and not being worn down by the everyday grind of it. And just the delegation, I think, is so huge and something I need to take on in my own business. Thanks so much.
Time to hire an assistant, Courtney. We talked about this. All right, who else?
Phil,
Yes.
may I ask?
Sure.
Were those clients, were they analysts or what quadrant did they fit in?
Which one?
The one you went to see personally that for that sale?
You know, the when I went and drove out there personally, the young,
yeah,
definitely. So one thing, when you pull the title search off and it shows that he's an engineer, that's key. And so those people, first of all, did I set up expectations to get a bidding war? Were they reading everything about over asking? Yeah, sometimes your analyst, you'll need to go there and hold their hand, and you need to bring the data. And I brought sales. Like, they already listed their place. It was listed for $549. I got $549. I only got one offer. It was exposed for a week, but their expectations were higher. And that was that personal touch. I spent maybe an hour with them getting them to sign a full price offer. Like, normally people would think, okay, send off the DocuSign and they're just going to sign off. But I don't think you ever want to take anything for granted. And, you know, I heard John Keller once say, who's the rock star in the sale? Is it a realtor enhanced by technology, or is the rock star technology enhanced by a realtor? And we need to stay on top. We need to be that rock star. We need to be able to guide them and not just pass technology off to do everything, because we won't be relevant. Will we be relevant in 10 years? I mean, those are things that boards and provincial associations and national associations talk about all the time. How can we stay on top of our game? How can we make our members productive? And how can they stay relevant in this ever-changing world? So yeah, to answer your question, Jazz, they were analysts.
Thank you for that question, Jazz. Phenomenal. So it's really about the personal touch, guys. That's what I'm getting from this call. And you have to be passionate about your work to do what Phil has done for 30 years, guys. 30 years. Right, Michael, question.
31 now.
31, got it. Okay.
Hey, Phil, I was just wondering, after taking the basic seminar, because obviously you were successful as a realtor before that, but what was the biggest shift for you after taking the basic?
So, you know, here's an interesting thing. I took a basic 3-day course in 2008, and I finished the course, and, you know, my life's pretty good. I'm fine. And then somehow in 2014, with teenage kids and being a workaholic, in fact, you know, as a realtor, they say we're self-employed. We own our own business. No, the business owned me. In 2014, I went down to a ranch in California, 7 days. I disconnected from the world, and I came back to get balance in my life. And what I made and how successful wasn't going to matter. I had all these tools that I had learned, how to connect, how to be a giver instead of a taker. That year, when I came back in 2014, 2015, in 7 months, I had made 7 figures. I had my best year ever, and I wasn't trying to make money. I ended up, I mean, I always had a dream of making $1 million, right? Who doesn't? That year ended up at $1.2 million. I worked less and spent more time with my family, but I just really connected at a much deeper level. So to answer your question, some of us are a little harder to get through to. And in 2008, it wasn't enough for me. I needed to go through my journey. And, you know, in 2010, I had been in the business 20 years. And I wasn't really that happy. And so that's when someone asked me to serve on the board and give back to my organization. And I started to learn governance, and I started to get passionate about giving back. And it helped me to become the person that I am. All those years of experience serving on a volunteer basis for the real estate board, trying to come up with ideas, it made me a better person. And I was fortunate they voted me to be the president. And for a year in 2018, I was your spokesperson. That year, my goal was to be the best president ever. What I made that year didn't matter. In fact, that was probably the first year I didn't make President's Club, but it wasn't my goal. If I made President's Club, I wouldn't have been a good president. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. Thank you for asking, Mike. I'm blown away. I'm like re-inspired. I'm going to get real passionate about my work and be out there being a contribution. Phil, you have been such an example of what a top agent should look like, behave like. And you've inspired us for now 30 years. Keep doing what you're doing, sir. We appreciate you. And thank you, everyone, for being on the call. Phil, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good selling, guys.
Have a great day, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Phil.
Bye now.
Cheers.